Welcome to the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast, your hub for all things sports. Now, here are your hosts, Dylan and Turner.
Welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Lieck, and today I am going to be flying solo as my good buddy Turner, who's always here co-hosting the show, is out with a family matter today. So I'm going to be bringing you everything in college football, the NFL, the NBA, and college basketball by myself today. We may get a hopeful appearance from Big Dog later on in the show, but we'll start with our Sunday Standouts. And we got to go to what I think was the most impressive win of the weekend, and that was the Cleveland Browns with the come-from-behind win over the Baltimore Ravens in amazing fashion, really, trailing by 14 points in the fourth quarter. The Browns actually started the game down 14-0, and you've got to give credit to DeShaun Watson, man. First throw of the game, second offensive snap, Watson throws a pick six, and the Ravens go up 7-0 right off the jump. And then the next possession for the Browns, they go 3 and out, and the Ravens quickly, like that, are up 14-0. And we've seen these Ravens kind of run away and hide from people lately. They did it to Detroit. They did it to Seattle. Have had some dominating performances, but this is also a team, and this is a criticism of the Ravens, and it was their issue last year, right? They've had trouble holding on to leads at times. We saw it earlier this year, up 10 points in the fourth quarter on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and turnovers have plagued Lamar Jackson as much as any quarterback in this league over the past couple years. And so, watching this game, the Browns offense got better as the game went on. The Browns defense was outstanding all game long. I mean, you look at it, the Ravens were held to 306 yards over the course of the entire game, less than 6 yards per play. And the Browns defense really only gave up 17 points if you think about it, because we had the pick six by Watson on the first throw, and then late in the game there was a fumble on a punt return by Prochet inside the 10-yard line. So the Ravens were basically gifted 14 points by their defense. And so the offense really only had 17 points. So the Browns defense was pretty outstanding throughout. And this was, kind of a battle between the two best defenses. And you look at it, and the Browns defense proved to be the better defense, right? 17 first down for the Ravens, 24 for the Browns offense. The Browns offense was 8 of 16 on third down against the Ravens defense. On the other hand, the Ravens offense, 2 of 8 on first down. Browns really do a good job on third down. They did it again tonight. The Browns, they dominated time of possession, held the ball 10 more minutes than the Ravens. They ran 25 more plays than the Ravens. The box score, it looks like a dominating performance, really, from the Browns. And essentially turnovers and a few bounces go the Ravens' way, and it looks like they're going to get out of Dodge with a victory. And DeShaun Watson, man, to his credit, said not so fast. He led them down the field on 2 drives in the fourth quarter, one a touchdown drive to cut it to 7. And then the Browns defense coming up with a huge play, gets a pick six late in the game with about 8 minutes to go to give them a chance to tie it. The extra point was missed, and that led to the Browns, again, came down to can the defense get a stop and give their offense one more chance. They were able to, and the offense got the ball back for the Browns with about 4:55 to go. They went right down the field, 12 plays, 55 yards. Watson threw it. He used his legs. He was accurate. He looked like a really, really good quarterback. It looked like, okay, this is what you paid DeShaun Watson for here, and they got it. And they have been impressive, man. They're 6-3. They have only one loss with DeShaun Watson as their starting quarterback. And you look at the Ravens, the Bengals in this division. The Steelers are somehow 6-3. This division is stacked. And we have the new playoff system where there are 7 teams that go to the playoffs. It wouldn't actually shock me if somehow everybody in this division got in. More than likely, the more I think about it, probably the one of those teams gets left out, and it's probably the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though the Bengals currently have the worst record in that division. But everybody's real tight, and anyone could win that division, and anyone could miss the playoffs because that race is going to be tight. But really, really impressive win from the Browns. DeShaun Watson, can he keep it going? Because the Browns now sit 6-3. He did get injured at the end of the game. They're doing an MRI this morning on his leg, on his left ankle. So hopefully everything comes up clean there, because you look at their schedule, the next, the remaining schedule is not very difficult. They're home against the Steelers, and say what you want about the Steelers in terms of like being 6-3, but that is not a 6-3 football team, and that was one that the Browns had stolen away from them last game. They're at home where they're 4-1. If Watson is healthy, I don't see them having any problem with the Steelers. They then get to go to the Broncos, albeit the Broncos a little bit better than they've been in past weeks, at the Rams, at home against the Jaguars, which looks like much less of a difficult game now, versus the Bears, at the Texans, versus the Jets, and at the Bengals. So, pretty easy remaining schedule. There is no reason this team doesn't get in the playoffs, and they should absolutely have a chance to win that division. Moving on in our Sunday standouts, and we will go to the San Francisco 49ers, and a team that I really believed, and I said this last week on the podcast, I considered, an NFL best bet on the 49ers this week. -3, I thought this was a great spot for them, but a lot of people like this Jaguars team, and I just did not see it. I've said it for years. I've been a negative guy on Trevor Lawerence since he came in the league. Not a fan. I'm just not. Every time he does something good, he'll have 2 good weeks in a row, then the third one's a stinker. And that's exactly what happened here. I mean, the guy was horrific yesterday against the 49ers defense that has not played very well the last few weeks. I mean, they haven't. And Trevor Lawerence, 17 for 29, $185, and 3 turnovers. He was sacked 5 times for a loss of 30 total yards. He had a 15 quarterback rating in the game. Horrific. I mean, it's really bad in this spot, and they could not do a thing on offense. And it's not like this is something new. Like I said, Lawrence has had his struggles even this year. He's taking care of the ball a little bit better than the last 2 years. He led the league in turnovers. Nobody turned the ball over more than Trevor Lawerence combined the past 2 seasons. So he's done a little bit better job taking care of the ball, hence the reason they went on a 5-game winning streak. But again, like you look at it early in the year, second game of the year, they play the Chiefs, don't have an offensive touchdown. Lose by 8, score 9 points. Third game of the year, they play the Texans, 17 points, 1 offensive touchdown. Against the Falcons, 1 offensive touchdown. I mean, they had 2 offensive touchdowns in 3 weeks, the first 4 weeks of the season. So they got on track a little bit against some, below average defenses. They got the Bills in London, their second game there, when there was a ton of injuries to that Bills secondary. They got the Colts, who have been a shit show defensively. They got the Saints, who are one of the more inconsistent defenses. They show that this weekend. Josh Dobbs lit them up. And they got the Steelers, who, have been okay defensively, and they put up only 20 on Pittsburgh. So follow that up with a 3-point output against the 49ers. To me, this Jacksonville team, anybody who thought they were contenders going into this game has to have been proven wrong here. I mean, you must have watched that game and seen, okay, this is not... it's not like this 49ers team was rolling. It's not like this was the Cowboys game where everything was going right for the 49ers, and then they just rolled over a good, decently good Dallas team, and everybody freaked out about Dallas after that game, including me. And I don't know if that was warranted, but I think it's warranted to freak out over the Jaguars here. And you look at that division, the way Houston is playing, they by no means have that division locked up. They still have to play essentially the entirety of the AFC North, right? They still have to play the Bengals, Browns, and Ravens, and they do it in consecutive weeks. So they get 2 divisional games back-to-back versus the Titans next week, then they go to Houston. That's a huge game on November 26th in Houston. I mean, if you lose that game and Houston continues to roll offensively like they've been doing, that all of a sudden you could be tied, and now you face the Bengals, the Browns, and the Ravens back-to-back-to-back. I mean, good luck. That could be real trouble for them. I mean, they're going to get in the playoffs more than likely, but I wouldn't be resting my laurels on being 6-3 because that is not an easy schedule. They do finish at the Bucks versus the Panthers and at the Titans, but to me, I don't know. I'm just not a Jags believer. I don't buy them. I don't buy Trevor Lawerence, never have. And he proved that to me again this weekend. On the other hand, the 49ers, they looked really good. They got healthy, right? Trent Williams got back from his injury. He played. McCaffrey had been dealing with a few things. He played and looked pretty decent, even though he obviously wears down over the course of a season. You had George Kittle had 3 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown. And then Deebo Samuel finally back, finally healthy. That's huge for that offense. I mean, they're a different team when they're healthy, right? Because they can use Deebo Samuel in the pass game. They can use him in the run game. They have Brandon Ayuk down the field. George Kittle's one of the better tight ends in the league. If Purdy, and this is the key, and this is why I liked San Francisco in that matchup. If Purdy has time to throw, if he is not pressured, right, he is one of the better quarterbacks because he's got Kyle Shanahan calling plays and dialing up schemes to get him, the ball to his playmakers in easy positions, right? And that sounds obvious, right? Of course, any quarterback you get pressure on, they're going to be worse. But Brock Purdy is different. He's he and Trevor Lawerence are the 2 of the worst quarterbacks in the league against pressure. So when pressure gets in their face, they tend to freak out and turn it over. That's why you saw the outcry against Brock Purdy the last 3 weeks, because what happened? The offensive line was banged up, and Brock Purdy was pressured, and he threw interceptions and fumbled the ball. This is exactly what I've said for weeks on the podcast, guys. I've been saying this. That San Francisco offensive line is 1 injury away from being unserviceable. And that's what happened over the past 3 weeks. So to me, San Francisco should be doing everything they can to get to the playoffs healthy. They're going to make the playoffs, right? But they are very thin, not just on the O-line, throughout the entirety of the team, right? McCaffrey goes down. That's, your elite run game is gone, right? The defense, very thin in the secondary. So, key for the 49ers is to stay healthy and to keep pressure off Brock Purdy. And if you can do that, things like the Dallas Cowboys matchup and this Jacksonville Jaguars matchup, he'll look really good. 19 for 26, 296 yards, threw for over 11 yards per pass, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's fantastic. The Jaguars are 25th in the league in pressure rate. That's why he was so good yesterday. So a good betting nugget if you're looking to get a feel for the Niners. A, is the 49ers offensive line healthy? B, if you can look at the officiating matchup, and C, do they call lots of holds? Because if they do, the 49ers with any sort of injury are going to be flagged all game long and put behind the down and distance. And more importantly, number 3, does the team they're playing get pressure? Because if they do, and that offensive line is remotely, not serviceable or injured, there's going to be issues with Purdy throwing the ball. If they're healthy and it's a team like Jacksonville who's not good in pressure, then I would back the 49ers in all of those spots. I don't think home or away really matters all that much. I think it's more having to do with the pressure and how they handle that. Moving on to our next Sunday standout, and we'll talk quickly about my Dallas Cowboys and what a dominant performance it was. Obviously, against an inferior team in the New York Giants. I'm sorry, guys. Tommy DeVito is just not an NFL quarterback. And I don't understand. I guess the Giants are just saying we'll tank because there are so many issues with that team right now beyond just, the quarterback situation. The offensive line is historically bad. We've mentioned this before. They can't protect anybody. It really didn't matter who the quarterback was, right? DeVito makes it significantly worse, obviously, but if you have an offensive line that's that poor, you could put legitimately Patrick Mahomes back there and they're not making the playoffs. You have got to be able to protect your quarterback, at least serviceably, right? But, the Cowboys, dominating fashion again. They beat the Giants the first time they played them 40-0, 49-17 last night or yesterday afternoon, and the Giants scored 10 of their 17 in the fourth quarter when it was already game over. Dak Prescott was outstanding in the game. 26 for 35 for 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Rico Dowdle actually led the Cowboys in running, and that's one thing I do want to touch on, and that's the Dallas Cowboy run game. I don't understand what the issue is and why they can't seem to get it going, but Tony Pollard has struggled mightily, man, and I just don't understand. It's really weird. I don't think it's just the offensive line, because you look at Rico Dowdle and he comes in there and he's really inefficient and he runs the ball, looks like better than Pollard. right now. Pollard, over his career going into this year, rushed for over 6.5 yards per carry. And going into this game, this season, 3.9. 3.9. Yesterday he carried the ball 15 times for 55 yards. And it's not even just the ability to like he doesn't run angry anymore. It's like when he was the backup, he ran with some desperation, and you see that out of Rico Dowdle. And I get that. That's how running backs are, right? You can only run with that anger and that force and that power and take those hits for so long. But I also think that the injury's playing a factor, because before last year, before that injury, Pollard was explosive. He was like one of the more explosive people, runners in the league. And over the past 5, 6, 7 games, it was okay to start. Since then, no explosion. Even there was a big pass play a couple weeks ago where he caught it in the open field and busted a big run or a big pass play on the reception, and he couldn't outrun like a safety. It was weird. He just doesn't have the explosion that he normally does. But if the Cowboys throw the ball like they did yesterday, I don't see how they don't have at least a shot to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they will, but to me, you look at it, who's the most complete team right now? Philadelphia. The Eagles are the best team in the league, as much as it pains me to say it. And I'm not a fan of Jalen Hurts. I think he's overrated, and I think he fits what they do really well. And he runs the offense that he's told. He doesn't check the play. It's one read. If it's there, throw it. If it's not, run. And that works for them. And they've got the Philly special, which will be eliminated from the rule book next year. And then Jalen Hurts will have his rushing touchdowns cut in half, maybe even cut by 70%. That's me digressing. The point is, the Eagles, to me, are the most complete team, right? I think the Chiefs lack wide receivers. Mahomes, obviously, is really good, so he might mask some of those problems, but I don't see the Chiefs able to win a Super Bowl with that caliber of receiver. So to me, the Eagles are the most complete team. They have the best offensive line in football. They have maybe the best defensive line in football. They have a quarterback who does what he's told and fits the scheme. They have excellent wide receivers. A.J. Brown's a stud. Devontae Smith is an outside threat. He's a great route runner. You have maybe a top 3 tight end in Dallas Goedert, right? The only issue with the team is the secondary. The secondary is not very good. But overall, as a team, they're the most complete team. And last week, the Cowboys went into Philly, and really, I think they outplayed them. I mean, they essentially, you look at the game, right? Obviously, the Eagles win the game, but Dallas was the better team for the entirety of the first half, led at halftime. They were the better team most of the fourth quarter. It was the third quarter stretch that killed them, where they went from up 3 to down, whatever it was, 10 or 11. That was the difference in the game. That third quarter. So they were not the better team for only about 25% of that game. Now, unfortunately, they were so bad in that 25% of the game, and they dug themselves in a hole that they ended up losing the game by 5. But still, all that said, they get down to the 6-yard line, have a 1st and 5 at the 6, and can't get in. So, most teams in that situation against that Eagles secondary probably get in and score. So I'm just saying, I'm not a Cowboys homer. I really don't ever think they're that great. And I don't believe in Dak, and I don't believe in McCarthy. Watching Dak just shit on himself down the stretch of the game against Philly when they had the ball at the 6-yard line was absolutely brutal. But that said, it's hard for me to watch that game and watch how the Cowboys have played essentially since they were, clobbered, slobberknocked by San Francisco. They've been really, really good. And even in the loss to the Eagles, they looked pretty good. So, I still think Dallas is Super Bowl contenders. I think it's going to be tough because they're going to have to go on the road. And unless there's a major injury on the Eagles' offense, like Jalen Hurts gets injured or, major injuries to that offensive line or wide receiving core, I just don't see the Eagles giving up that first place. Dallas is more likely to have stinkers than Philly. Now, Philly does have a brutal schedule right now. I mean, they're going through a stretch where they just played Dallas. Obviously, they got their bye. They have to play Kansas City on Monday Night Football this week. That's going to be a really tough one right after playing Dallas and Miami. I mean, they went They went Miami, then they got the Commanders, who always play them tough. Then they play Dallas. Then they got their bye. Then they go at the Chiefs on Monday night. Then they go home against the Bills, home against the 49ers, at the Cowboys, at the Seahawks, right? So those next 5 games, if they were to lose 2 or 3, if let's say the Chiefs and the 49ers get them, now all of a sudden the Cowboys, if they can go through that next 3 weeks and stay, with 3 losses, now that game it goes at Dallas on a Sunday night on December 10th, and the winner of that game will control their own destiny the rest of the way in the final 3 weeks. Still think the Eagles win the division. Still think the Eagles are the best team. But, it really comes down to bad coaching and Dak Prescott. If those things can somehow get fixed, which is unlikely, then the Cowboys have a shot to win it. We'll move on from Dallas, though. Real quick, I'll touch on the Giants. I think I was a fan of Brian Daboll when he was the Bills OC. Thought he was outstanding. And then he goes over to New York, and in his first year with a team that I thought had very little talent and not a great quarterback, he does an amazing job. And they win these close games, and yes, they were very fortunate in that last year. But they make the playoffs, and then they win a playoff game on the road at a Vikings team that won 11 games. I mean, pretty impressive, right? And I bet the Giants under on their win total this year, mainly because I knew there was going to be regression. And that said, I'm shocked at how bad they are. I cannot believe that they're this bad. And if you watch Daboll on the sideline, it literally looks like Brian Daboll has given up on his team. It looks like that. He was fighting with his captain on the sideline yesterday. They have no shot. He's trotting out Tommy DeVito, who is not an NFL quarterback at all. He's not even remotely close to an NFL quarterback. But it's not just that. It's the way he's calling the game. It's like he's calling the game to where he doesn't actually believe they can win the game, which is weird to me for Daboll because he leaves Saquon in there in the third and fourth quarters the last couple weeks, down 30. It's just so odd to me. It's very contradictory the way he is coaching and calling plays, but leaving guys in the game. It's like I almost wonder if the owner told him, "Look, we're horrible this year. We aren't going to go anywhere. Let's just tank and get a pick." And even if that means for the best offensive lineman, or maybe you trade that pick and you're able to pick up some capital, get an O-lineman, get another high first-round pick, and just completely rebuild the line. Because until they address that issue, nothing else matters. But I wonder if that's not the case, if management and Daboll are not on the same page right now, then that's going to be an issue because that looks really, really bad. Daboll on the sideline, the way he has looked the last few weeks, it does not look good. And then at the beginning of the Dallas game, if you didn't watch the game, he throws a challenge flag on a fumble that was called down. So Dallas, I believe it was Pollard. It was Brandon Cooks. Cooks was tackled. He was down by a mile. I mean, it wasn't even close. And Daboll throws his challenge flag. And the officials go over and tell him, we already kind of looked at it, the way they do those expedited reviews, right? And he says, "Oh, okay, then I don't want it. You could read his lips saying that. But you can't do that. If you throw a challenge flag and then you're like, "Oh, just kidding," you can't do it. They have to challenge it. And so when he did challenge it, they ended up obviously losing. It took 10 seconds for them to confirm it, and he just looked like a complete fucking idiot. I mean, if you go watch the replay of that challenge, of that fumble, it's the first or second play of the game, and I get trying to give your team a possession, but it wasn't like the Cowboys ran to the line and snapped the ball. There's plenty of time for him to look at it and see that it wasn't close. So I'm worried about Brian Daboll, and if he doesn't, I'll say this, if he gets fired from the Giants, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm throwing $2 million at that dude to be my OC because he is a great offensive mind. I just don't know that he's a head coach. Moving on to our last Sunday standout, and we will go to Houston, Texas, where CJ Stroud continues his bid for Rookie of the Year. He turned in another solid performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, defeating Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who were on a 5-game winning streak. And Stroud was once again very good in the game. But let's look at the breakdown of what happened in that one. So essentially Burrow did not play all that well in the game, right? And Stroud, for the most part, was pretty solid. Now, Stroud did turn the ball over 3 times in the game. He threw an interception and fumbled the ball twice. And there was a massive, massive mistake that it's going to go unnoticed because they ended up winning the game. But they led by 10. It was 27-17. Joe Burrow had just thrown an interception in the end zone. And it looked like the game was essentially over. It was a 3rd down, I believe in 2. And there was just under 4 minutes to play in the game. Essentially, you run the ball there if you're Houston. You get a 1st down, the game is over. You don't get a 1st down, you still force Cincinnati to use one of their remaining, I believe they only had 1 timeout. So it would have forced them to use their final timeout, and now you punt the ball away. They have to go the length of the field and score, and even if they do, they're needing an onside kick to get back in it, right? Instead, they decide to throw it. Stroud tries to find Tank Dell, and it's picked off, and it was a really bad decision. And again, people will not talk about this interception because the Texans ended up winning. But this interception really should have cost Houston the game. And so the pick happens. It takes the Bengals 2 plays to score. They give the ball back to Houston, and Houston essentially runs the ball on 1st and 2nd down, gets it down to, I believe, 2:26 or so to go because they ran a play, had to run another one. There was a timeout called. And so on 3rd down, they decide to throw. It's incomplete. Bengals get the ball back. Joe Burrow drives them down the field in 5 plays. And on the last play of the drive, it's third and goal at the 13-yard line. They got inside. 1st and goal at the 6, similar to how the Cowboys were the previous week. But they were down 3. And on 3rd and 13, Burrow throws a strike to the end zone to Taj Boyd. It hits Boyd in the hands, and he drops the ball. And that drop cost Cincinnati the game, and it saved CJ Stroud from being the cause of a loss, right? Texans should never have lost that game. It shouldn't have even gotten close. The pass is dropped by Boyd. Cincinnati has to settle for a field goal, and now we're in a tie game with 1:33 to go, and CJ Stroud has 2 timeouts to go down the field, and all they need is a field goal. If Boyd catches that pass in the end zone, now you have to go 75 yards, score a touchdown, and win the game, and it's a completely different scenario. Now, they did do it last week, but against a much worse defense at Tampa Bay. And so, really, really fortunate for CJ Stroud. And I just wanted to mention that because I like Stroud. I think Stroud is really, really good. I mean, I noticed it after the 2nd week. I was like, this kid actually is the best passer in the draft. I just didn't know if he was going to be a great quarterback. And he has, I don't know if it's the coaching or maybe just, having the experience of playing with, some big-time receivers and a pro-style offense. But he looks really, really good. But he did make some big mistakes yesterday. The guy who made bigger mistakes, though, was Joe Burrow. Now, Burrow did throw the game-winning, touchdown that should have been caught, and Taj Boyd should catch that ball. I mean, if you go back and look, I'll put a picture of it up there. I mean, it hits him in the hands. Hits him in the hands, 2 hands. It's a touchdown. You've got to catch the ball there. And he dropped it. So Burrow did, despite not playing well, he threw 2 interceptions. He threw for 347 yards. And 2 touchdowns as well. Jamar Chase, who was questionable to start the game, did play, had 5 catches for $124 and a touchdown. But you look at the breakdown of this game, and the Texans, like I said, they had no business ever being close in this game. They outgained the Bengals 544 to 380. Total domination. And if I'm a Bengals fan, I have to say, I am worried about my defense because that was a really, really poor showing. And on the final drive of the game, the Texans have a backup kicker because Keith Fairbairn is out with a pulled quad. So you have a kid in McLaughlin who has been cut. I believe he was cut by the Colts last year for multiple misses. And so, the Texans are in field goal range, but it's like the border of his range. And the ball is caught at the 30-yard line, and they have a tackle. The kick is going to happen on the next play, and he breaks 2 or 3 to Noah Brown. the former Cowboys receiver, breaks 2 or 3 tackles, gets down to the 20 and makes it a 38-yard field goal. And it was the difference between, close to a 50-yarder and inside of a 40-yarder. Huge difference in the NFL. Huge difference. I mean, you're talking like, for that kid, probably 48 is probably like 45%, 40%. 38 is probably like 88%. Most NFL kickers aren't going to miss from 38. And so just bad showing, not just on that play, but that just was one where it's like, okay, if we make a tackle here, we still, despite all of this, have a 60, probably 55 to 60% chance to win the game. And you can't make a tackle on a receiver in Noah Brown who's not that great. I mean, he's basically filling in for Nico Collins, their number one guy who was out. And that's the other thing, right? The Texans lit up the Bengals defense without their number one receiver. Lit them up. 356 yards passing, 188 yards rushing. 7 yards per play. That's a problem. The Bengals defense is an issue. And that is the difference between a Super Bowl team and a Super Bowl contender and a team that sneaks in the playoffs. And I picked the Bengals at the beginning of the year to win the Super Bowl, or to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. And I'm going to stick to it, but I'm not going to lie, I'm very worried. I don't like the way Burrow looked. The 2 interceptions late in the game were fucking awful. I mean, they were so bad. The last one, the second one, which really should have ended the game, it was like triple coverage, nobody there. It just didn't make any, like if the first guy didn't intercept it, the second guy would have. If the second guy didn't, the third guy would have. It was a horrific throw by Burrow. The Bengals gave that one away, though, at the end, even though they shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place. But great game from CJ Stroud. DeMeco Ryans, man, Coach of the Year material. That's what that has to be. I mean, the story has to be DeMeco Ryans Coach of the Year. That if we're doing a midseason award, right, we're 10 weeks in, we've got 8 weeks left. To me, DeMeco Ryans is the Coach of the Year. CJ Stroud is the Rookie of the Year, at least the Offensive Rookie of the Year. One more Sunday standout, and we will go to Los Angeles, and we've got to talk about the Chargers, man, and Brandon Staley. And I'm going to get to the Lions in a minute. The Lions were really good in this game offensively. But at what point do we have to say enough is enough, Brandon Staley? Enough is enough. I mean, 41 points. Essentially, this looked like one of the college games the last couple weekends where it's like Oregon versus USC or Washington versus USC or, Oregon-Washington, where nobody can stop anybody and it's just whoever has the ball last wins. And if you're a team who gets into a game like that every once in a while, that's fine. But it's like the 4th or 5th time that's happened to the Chargers this year. You cannot put up 38 points and lose in the NFL. You just can't do it. Especially when your head coach is a defensive guy. Like, that's the problem with this. If your head coach is an offensive guy and, you're like the Chiefs, right? And that happens because you spent all this money on offense, right? That makes a little more sense. But they have invested in this defense. There's a lot of talent, and this is why the Chargers baffle a lot of professional sports bettors, because they don't understand how you can have that level of talent and underperform that consistently, right? 41 points given up. Jared Goff threw for 333 yards. Montgomery ran for $116 and a touchdown. Gibbs ran all over them as well. He was 14 carries for 77 yards. As a team, the Lions ran for 6.5 yards per play and threw for 10 yards a play. So it's like you're averaging 8 yards per play in the NFL. It's pathetic. The defense is pathetic. Brandon Staley is awful. And then Dan Campbell, man, the balls on that guy. As much as, as big of a win as that was for the Lions, that game could have gone south. They did blow the lead. They were up 17 and blew the lead, or 17-3 rather. They're up 14, and then I think they were up 24-10 as well at one point in the second quarter. They led. They never trailed in the game, and then late on the last drive of the game, wild. It was 4th and I believe like 5. And the Lions could have kicked a field goal and gone up. It was a long field goal, but to Dan Campbell's credit, I agreed with it's like it's just like, if you kick the field goal, there's like probably a 60% chance you make it. Their kicker's not great, Riley Patterson. If he makes it, you've given up 38 points already. So, odds are they're at least going to go get a field goal and tie it, right? So it's like, okay, or I could just go for it here against their defense who's been bad all day long, and there's probably a 70% chance I get it anyway. And if I do get it, then the game is over. We can run the clock down and kick a game-winning field goal. That's what happened. They got the first down. Nice throw from Jared Goff. And the offensive coordinator for Detroit's been really good. But back to the Chargers really quick. Justin Herbert threw for 323, 4 touchdowns. He ran it 4 times for 15 yards. Austin Eckler actually ran the ball somewhat decent compared to what he's done this year. Keenan Allen couldn't be covered. 11 catches for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. They could not cover Keenan Allen. And you put up 38 points and you lose because your coach, who's a defensive-minded head coach, cannot find a way to utilize talent and get stops when it matters. Shit, he can't get stops when it doesn't matter. He can't get stops no matter what. He cannot stop a runny nose. It's pathetic, and Brandon Staley needs to go. I'm not a Chargers fan. I have no skin in the game here for that team. But to me, and I don't like calling for people's jobs. Not that I have any influence over it whatsoever on a small podcast like this, but it's like, I don't like saying, hey man, that guy deserves to be fired, because I've been a coach. I've been there, right? I don't think people understand how hard coaching is, how much you have to deal with. But at what point is it like, all right, dude, you blew a 28-point playoff lead last year in the first round and lost the game. It was like, 28-0, right? Or 31-3. Blow that lead. Give up 30 points in the second half with your defense. Lose the game, come back the next year, and your defense is historically bad. This is a historically bad secondary. It's wild to me. I don't understand it. And I think that at some point you just have to be like, okay, it's time to cut ties here, right? Like, I don't think Kellen Moore is a head coach whatsoever. But at least, yesterday I'll give him some credit, right? The Lions defense has not been bad. They're a top 14, top 12 defense, right? They're in the top third of the league defensively. And the offense for the Chargers was awesome. They already were down Mike Williams. They're already down Josh Palmer, so they're down 2 of their top 3. And then for about 2 or 3 drives in the second half, Keenan Allen didn't play. And they still moved the ball all over Detroit. They came back essentially without Keenan Allen for a couple drives. 8.1 yards per pass. They didn't run it well. For some reason, Eckler cannot get going. But this offense put up 38 points. At what point do you just say enough is enough? We'll make Kellen Moore the interim the rest of the year. If nothing else, maybe it'll give our guys a boost defensively. Because clearly, these guys aren't buying what he's selling in Brandon Staley. These guys are not buying what Brandon Staley is selling. It's time to sell on Brandon Staley, and he's got to go from the Chargers. Speaking of selling, let's move on to a new segment called Buy or Sell. Pretty simple. We're going to have a topic, and after that topic is stated, I'm going to tell you whether I buy it or sell it. Number 1, the Detroit Lions are true Super Bowl contenders. I am going to reluctantly sell on this one. And it's not that I don't think the Lions are good. This is the best I've seen the Lions ever. It's better than I've ever seen them with Matthew Stafford. They took a huge step from last year. It's what you want to see from a team who is progressing to be a winning franchise. And I love it. I think it's great for the NFL. But here's why I'm going to sell them being true contenders. So they beat the Chiefs the first week of the season, and they do it in a 1-point victory, a game that the Chiefs really gave away. And in the game, Chris Jones, the best defensive player for Kansas City, and Travis Kelce, the best offensive weapon for Kansas City, both didn't play. And they still won by just 1. So that win to me is there's an asterisk on that win. Like, first game of the season, missing your best offensive and best defensive player, right? Obviously, Mahomes is the best offensive player, but besides Mahomes, and you win by 1. So, okay, you won. That's a big win in terms of, building on confidence for the success of the program, that franchise. That's great. But not all that impressive of a win when you look at it. Besides that game, their wins are against the Falcons at home, losing record. At Green Bay, losing record. Versus the Panthers, 1 win on the season. At the Buccaneers, losing record. Versus the Raiders, just got in the plus column, but they're probably going to finish the year with a losing record. And at the Chargers, losing record. So they've beaten 2 teams with a winning record. The Chiefs by 1 without their best players, and the Raiders, who are not very good, if we're being honest, right? So their other 2 games, they played the Seahawks at home. Seahawks, I don't think the Seahawks are that great. We saw them get slobberknocked by the Ravens a week ago. But the Seahawks beat the Lions in overtime. And then they played the Ravens in Baltimore 3 weeks ago, and every Joe Public bettor in the world was on the Lions. That was my biggest NFL position of the season, taking the Ravens there, because I didn't believe Detroit was that great, and they proved me right. The Ravens beat them by 35 points. 32 points, rather. So, to me, are the Lions a good team? Absolutely. But I just don't see them as an elite team yet. And here's the last thing I'll say why I'm selling it. They do have a very easy end of the season. So they are going to win that division, but they're probably going to be the 2 or the 3 seed, I would think. It depends on how the rest of the NFC plays out, how the Niners finish, right? I think the Eagles are probably going to be the number 1 overall seed, and it'll come down to the Niners and the Lions. But the Lions have an easier schedule, and they're a game ahead of the Niners right now. We'll see. Regardless, my issue with them is that Jared Goff is really bad on the road in weather. So if you take, I don't count games on the road in a dome. Like last game against the Chargers, you're in a dome. So the road there doesn't matter. But when he's on the road in bad weather, it's the biggest dichotomy in the NFL of any quarterback. He's really, really good in domes. He's really good at home. He's horrific in bad weather and in outdoor fields and on grass. It's just how he's been his whole career. He's from the West Coast. He played in California. Now he's in Detroit. They play in a dome. He's a dome quarterback. That's what he is. He's a dome quarterback. So to me, when you're not going to likely be the number 1 seed and you're going to have to go and play a road game or 2 in the playoffs and win on the road in weather, like go to Philly in December, right? But I just don't see them going into Philadelphia and winning a game on the road with Jared Goff in outdoor weather. And then the second thing is the defense has been pretty good throughout the year, but they've had some duds, right? Like 3 weeks ago against the Ravens, 38 points. I mean, the Ravens in the first half, I believe, put up like 340 yards of total offense in one half on them. I mean, they just went up and down the field. It was 503 total yards of offense by Baltimore. Over 9 yards a pass and over 5 yards a run. 7 yards per play on the game. They were successful on 65% of offensive snaps. I mean, dominated. And then last week, yesterday against the Chargers, what happens? They get lit up by a team who, like I already said, was missing Keenan Allen for 4 possessions, was missing Mike Williams, was missing Josh Palmer, right? Like super injured team with not a lot of weapons. And they couldn't cover one receiver, Keenan Allen. He's the only guy they had to cover, and they could not do it. I think Gerald Everett even went out of the game. I mean, they were down to like practice squad guys, and they were lighting them up. So don't trust this defense. Don't trust Goff in outdoor weather. I hope I'm wrong. I'm rooting for the Lions. I really like the Lions. I'm actually starting to like Jared Goff. I never really liked him. I thought he was horrible. But he's in a situation where now he gets to play in a dome, and he's got a really good offensive line. So selling on the Lions, but still pulling for him.
Number 2, Kyler Murray will play himself into a big contract.
Guys, I'm just not seeing it. They beat an Atlanta team yesterday, who had Tyler Heineke starting at quarterback. Atlanta threw for a total of 70 yards in the game. I mean, it was one of the worst throwing performances I've ever seen by a team in the NFL. Like in a non-weather game where there's like a monsoon or a blizzard, it was horrific. I mean, they could not throw the ball. And Murray was decent, 19 of 32, 250, threw an interception, no touchdowns. He did lead him down the field for the game-winning drive. But I think that game was more about the Cardinals just being a little bit better than a bad Falcons team with Murray and Connor. But I don't see that team as anything to write home about. I still would be kind of surprised if they won more than 5 games this year. And Kyler Murray is the Call of Duty king, right? He's the Call of Duty king, and to me, until I see him consistently do it, I'm not buying it. Now, what I would be doing if I was Kyler Murray is really trying to push for them to trade me, because if I'm the Cardinals, I'm trying to get some. If he plays really well towards the end of this year, you might want to think about just blowing it up. The way that organization has been run, Steve Keim, the GM, is an absolute dumbass. Absolute idiot. If you don't believe me, go watch All or Nothing back in whenever they did the Cardinals, 2016. The guy is a buffoon. He got arrested for DWI not too long ago. I think they finally parted ways with him, but idiot. And the only reason the Cardinals had any success at that time was because of Bruce Arians. He told them who to draft. When David Johnson had his really good couple of years, that was all Bruce Arians. Steve Keim doesn't know what he's doing. And Michael Bidwell, has essentially created a hostile work environment. And I'm not into that whole bullshit about blaming everybody else and all that stuff. I don't really give a shit. But I think Michael Bidwell is a little weasel. And that's what I got from watching All or Nothing. Wasn't a fan of anyone except for Bruce Arians in that show. And I like Carson Palmer in that show. Regardless, to me, if I'm Arizona, I'm going to try to get the max out of Kyler Murray. I don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback, so why stay with him then? Unless you're just going to try and stay relevant. But look at last year. He played the whole year. They were fucking horrible. I mean, what's changed? He wasn't great yesterday. I know it's his first game back, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on this one. I'm selling on this one. I just don't see it.
Number 3, Bill Belichick is done, and it's time for him to retire.
This is going to be my first buy order, and I'm going to put a massive buy order in on this. Bill Belichick needs to go. He needs to retire, and I've said it. I've said for most of this year that I think he probably has a year or two left, but watching the last few weeks and the shit show that has occurred on the field, essentially ever since week 2, ever since they played the Cowboys, it's just been an absolute slide off of a cliff, just like diving off of a 50-meter cliff and face planting right into the water and breaking your fucking nose. That's what it's looked like for the Patriots. It's been awful. And you look at the game yesterday, they lose a game in which their defense allows 10 points in the game. I mean, this was one of the uglier games I've ever seen, but it's not just that, it's how the game played out. And yes, guys, Mac Jones is awful. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. But again, when you watch the end of this game, how does it play out? So essentially, the Patriots have the ball, they're down by 4, they're driving, and on, I believe, a third down, Mac Jones has Mike Gesicki, who, by the way, caught the game-winning touchdown against the Bills a couple weeks ago, has him wide open. He's running like a deep corner, and he's got him open in the end zone, and like the tiniest bit of pressure comes down on him, and he kind of throws off the back of his foot, and it might have been the worst interception I've seen all season. I mean, he short-armed it by 10 yards. It was a wide open touchdown, and instead it was intercepted. And it was really, really bad. But to me, the problem is that Bill Belichick's response to this was, yes, that was bad. It was one of the worst interceptions I've seen, but they got the ball back with like about a minute 30 to go, needing a touchdown to win the game. You have essentially told everybody that Mac Jones is still your starter because you don't have anybody else, right? They had Malik Cunningham for a little while. He was the second string. Bailey Zappi has been the second string for the last couple weeks, but we all know that Bailey Zappi, after that kind of miraculous first couple starts, was not good. And really, Mac Jones, metrically and statistically, is better than Bailey Zappi. Had Bill gone with Zappi at the start of this week, I wouldn't have blamed him whatsoever. But you have to look at the fact that, okay, yes, Mac threw a horrible interception. Yes, the offense has 6 points. But he's driven the ball down the field multiple times, right? They got inside the 5-yard line on the previous drive when they cut it and got a field goal to cut it to a 4-point game, or to a 1-point game, and then the Colts got their field goal. But then you put in a guy cold off the bench on the final drive and say, go win us the game. We need a touchdown in a minute and a half. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how you throw a kid in right there. How do you expect Bailey Zappi to go down the field? And sure enough, he actually did complete a few passes and got it near the 50-yard line. They got a first down, and they tried a fake spike, which never works. And, unless you're Josh Rosen against the A&M defense back in 2016. But the fake spike doesn't work, and he throws into triple coverage. It's intercepted, and you just see Bill Belichick on the sidelines like going like this. And it's like, Bill, what the fuck do you expect, bro? Like, you didn't go get a quarterback. You went and got Bill O'Brien as your offensive coordinator. You don't even go get a backup. So now you know it's like repeat of last year and the year before. What are you thinking? This doesn't make sense to me at all. And I think now this basically says Mac Jones is going to be benched next week. But it doesn't matter. That's the point. This doesn't matter. What matters is, if you watched Robert Kraft's interview before the game, he looked like defeated. He looked like he was like at its wit's end. And I'm thinking it's with Belichick. And I think he's kind of in a position where it's like, I really don't want to fire him because he's done so much for us. But like, at what point do you cut ties? At what point are you like, okay, Bill, like, we love you. You've done everything for this organization. You're amazing, but we can't keep going this direction, right? Like, and the problem is, and I'll finish with this on the Patriots, New England, and when they have had success and Belichick coaches the way he does and wears on his players and gets on your ass and calls you out, that's okay. You can handle that if you're winning, right? Winning masks a lot of things. And that coaching style worked in the past. But we've gotten softer and softer. I don't agree with it, but we've gotten softer and softer as a society, as football players, as athletes. Can't take constructive criticism anymore unless it's like phrased in a nice and happy way. But still, that's the truth. It wears on guys, and so when you're losing, it's going to create an issue in that locker room. I mean, they left dudes on this London trip. J.C. Jackson, they were just like, screw you, you're staying here. That's a whole nother issue. But to me, it just feels like this is like the players are getting worn on again and again and again, week and again, and it's just the same result. And at what point are you like, all right, enough is enough? The problem with firing him now is you're not going to make Bill O'Brien your head coach. So my guess is they finish the year, and then I could very well see Bill Belichick stepping down and resigning. Maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe that style works somewhere else where you have some talent. But to me, where you're at right now with the quarterback you have, this ain't the Tom Brady days anymore. You can't just trot out, no receivers and a shit offensive line and have your quarterback just save you time and time and time again and rely on your defense. Doesn't work that way anymore, Bill.
Number 4, the Cleveland Browns are AFC title contenders.
I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy the Cleveland Browns, and I've really liked what I've seen from their defense. I am a believer in the defense. I just think in the NFL nowadays, no defense is that amazing, right? Like, every defense has the ability to give up 30 points just because that's the way offense goes in today's league. But I think that over the course of the season, what I've seen, the most consistent defense and the best defense is the Browns. I do think it's really important that they somehow win this division, because if they win this division and they get home field advantage and you got to go to Cleveland in December and January, that is a tough place to play. They are good at home. The weather there is tough. I think Watson, right before the injury with his shoulder, he was really getting in a groove, and so that hurt. But PJ Walker held the ship down, held down the fort, and they were able to get out of it, largely unscathed. And now they pull this big win over the Ravens. They are 6-3. They've got a very favorable schedule the rest of the way, and they have a chance to win the AFC North, but more so, they have a chance to win the AFC and go to a Super Bowl. Do I think they will for sure? No. Do I think they have a decent chance? Yeah, I think they've got a chance because that defense is so damn good that they can hang with anybody. I mean, their only bad loss was the Ravens, and that was with PJ Walker, right? That was the first game. That was with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And then their other loss on the road against the Seahawks came at the very last possession. They should have won the game. They essentially gave it away. PJ Walker started. Against the Steelers at home in week 2, or on the road in week 2, the officials gifted Pittsburgh that game on a missed PI call late on Amari Cooper. Should have been a first down, or it might have been Donovan Peoples-Jones. Should have been a first down in field goal range, chance to get a touchdown and win the game. So yeah, I'm a buyer of this team, and this is impressive, man. They're doing it without Nick Chubb. They lost Tyler Conklin, at the beginning of the season, their best offensive lineman for the whole year, right? Like, they're missing key parts of the offense, and they just keep rolling. They play without their starting quarterback for 4 or 5 games. This team is a complete football team, and when you can find ways to win with other players, when you have main guys out, that's what the NFL is all about. That's the difference between Cleveland and San Francisco. I don't think Cleveland is a better team than San Francisco when healthy, but Cleveland finds ways to win no matter who is out there. They've competed in every game with the exception of the first one they faced the Ravens when they had a rookie quarterback starting, right? And when you have a good defense, you can run the ball, and you have a quarterback who is good enough to lead you to a Super Bowl, which I believe in his prime DeShaun Watson is, you have a shot. And I think the Browns have a real shot. All right, let's move on to my NFL picks for this week. And we'll start with the Thursday night primetime game where the Cincinnati Bengals are traveling to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are a 3.5-point favorite right now. And this is a real interesting matchup. Both teams coming off a loss. This is a massive game for each of these teams because whoever wins the game between the Steelers and the Browns this week will be 7-3. And so if the Ravens were to lose this game, all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, they looked like maybe the best team in the AFC. They wouldn't even be first place in their own division. And the Bengals, on the other hand, they lose this game and they drop back to 5-5, 500. They started off 1-3. They had won 4 straight games before dropping one to the Texans last week. And now, huge spot for both of these teams. It's in Baltimore. The Ravens did what the Ravens have done in the past couple years, which is blow big leads. This is a tough one to pick for me. I have a hard time. What I saw from the last 4 weeks from the Bengals, I have a hard time believing that last week is indicative of who they are, and I kind of think that the previous 4 weeks is who they actually were. But it's going to be tough to go into Baltimore off of a loss and win. Just something tells me that this is a spot the Bengals somehow pull a victory. I think most people will be on the Ravens here because even though the Ravens lost last week, the Bengals loss is going to be a bigger deal, right? They lost at the Bengals lost at home to a inferior Texans team. Everybody's all high on Stroud. I think people are going to be on the Ravens in this spot. I'm going to take the Bengals, and it's probably a dumb pick. The Ravens probably will win this game, but I'm going to take the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to win by a field goal. It'll be like a game-winning field goal late. That's normally how the Ravens lose them. Moving on to Sunday. We've got the Cowboys traveling to the 1-8 Carolina Panthers. And for me, I just think the Cowboys win these games in dominating fashion. And until I see them prove that otherwise, now this game is on the road, and they're 2-3 on the road, but the Panthers are pretty bad, even at home. Give me the Cowboys by 14. Dak will have another really good game against an inferior Carolina defense. Steelers at the Browns, and I am happily going to be backing the Browns in this one. The Steelers, like I said, the luckiest team in the league this year. They really have been outgained in every single one of their wins. They do not deserve to have 6 wins. They probably should have about 2 wins. And the Browns are 6-3. They could even probably be 7-2. As long as DeShaun Watson plays, I don't even think this is close. I say Browns by 10. The luck regression will happen for the Steelers this week, assuming Watson plays, which I think he does. Bears at the Lions, divisional matchup here in the NFC North in Detroit. And the Lions, despite their defense struggling the last couple weeks, they're still 3-1 at home. Goff plays great in the Dome. The Bears defense has played slightly better lately, but I don't think that they play that well this week against a stellar Lions offense when they play at home or in a Dome. Give me the Lions by 10. Chargers at the Packers, and we have the Chargers as a 3-point favorite. Man, this feels like a game, if the Chargers lose, that Brandon Staley does get fired because you're playing a Packers offense that is really, really poor moving the ball, efficiency-wise. All of the numbers say this Packers offense is not good, and the Chargers, if they have a bad game against this defense and they lose, or against this offense rather, and they lose, I think it's bye-bye time for Brandon Staley. I'm going to pick the Chargers. It's going to be a tight one. Wouldn't shock me if the Chargers lost this one, but I can't back Jordan Love. Give me Herbert any day of the week over Jordan Love. Chargers by 4, only because their defense can't get a stop. It'll be a high-scoring game. Raiders at the Dolphins, this is a simple one. The Raiders are lucky to win their last 2 games against bad teams. Really fortunate schedule for when they fired their coach. Makes Antonio Pierce look way better than he is. That guy got fired from Arizona State for illegal recruiting violations that he and Herm Edwards did and ruined that school in that program. They're playing on suspension for a couple years. So everybody cool the Jets on acting like Antonio Pierce is such a good dude. Give me the Dolphins. They're 4-0 at home. Raiders 1-4 away. Dolphins by 17. Blowout in this one. Only chance the Raiders have to keep it within that number and to keep it close is if Max Crosby can get pressure on Tua. If Tua gets hit by Crosby a couple times, that game could get close, but it won't because the Dolphins off of a bye have too much of a good game plan to protect Tua, I think. Giants at the Commanders. The Commanders are 9.5-point favorites. The Commanders should never be laying 9.5 points against anyone ever, but this Giants team is maybe the worst team I've ever seen in its current form with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. That was a shit show last week, and the fact that they even scored 17 points was only because the Cowboys were up by so much that they felt bad and put their practice squad in. Give me the Commanders by 10. Titans at the Jaguars. Jaguars off the embarrassing loss to the 49ers. Titans 0-5 on the road this year. They're 3-1 at home, 0-5 on the road. We've talked about it. They're a different team on the road. Will Levis, they need to take the reins off and let him just throw the ball downfield. They have him operating in a phone booth. It's ridiculous. We want to see what he can do, Vrabel. You're 3-6. You're going to lose at least 4 or 5 more games no matter who your quarterback is. Let him go, dude. Jaguars win this one by 10, easy. Cards at the Texans. This feels like a spot that the Cardinals could win because the Texans are so high and they're riding this win streak and Stroud's playing so well. If the Cardinals had a little bit better defense, I would pick the Cardinals. But I think this line is right. It's going to be right at 4. It's going to be a very tight game. I'm going to say the Texans, they've been the team that's very fortunate this year. I'm going to pick them to win a tight game by 3 on a game-winning field goal. There's going to be lots of points in that game, though. That game will be an absolute shootout. Buccaneers versus the Niners. Niners are favored by 11. The Bucs were a fraud, 3-1. Since that start, they are 1-4. They're 2-2 on the road, but I don't see this game being close. The 49ers, when healthy, are the best team in the league, and they are pretty healthy right now. Give me San Francisco by 11. Jets at the Bills. Bills are favored by 6.5 points. The Jets, if you'd asked me this 2 weeks ago, the Bills I just think are overrated. I picked the Broncos to upset the Bills tonight, but I guess I'll take the Bills in this one because the Jets, anytime Nathaniel Hackett is operating your offense, you have very little chance to win games. The guy's a fucking moron. He's shouldn't ever have been a head coach. He shouldn't even be a coordinator. He should be like the quarterback's coach for the JV white team at Reagan. Like, it's ridiculous how bad this guy is of a coach. Give me the Bills by a touchdown. Seahawks at the Rams. Man, this is the one I think that we're going to see an upset. The Rams always play the Seahawks well. McVay has Pete Carroll's number. He just knows how to call them. Their defense gives them fits. Give me the Rams in this one. They're only 1.5-point dogs. They're playing at home. If Stafford doesn't play, I'll take the Seahawks. But if Stafford plays, which I think he is, give me the Rams in a close one. Vikings at the Broncos on Sunday night. This is where Josh Jacobs comes back to earth. The Broncos, I think, are going to win tonight, and they're going to win next week against the Vikings. They're going to be 5-5. I hope I'm right. They could definitely lose to the Bills tonight, even though I picked them. But I do think they beat the Vikings either way. Give me the Broncos. They're actually favored right now by 1.5 points at home at Mile High. Tough place to play. Broncos defense playing better. Russell Wilson having a pretty good year. Give me the Broncos. They'll get back to at least 4 wins, maybe 5 if they can steal one tonight. And then our final nightcap on Monday Night Football. We have the game of the week, maybe one of the best games of the year. The Eagles traveling to Arrowhead to take on Kansas City. And the Chiefs, a modest 3-point favorite, but I got it at 2.5 because I think the Chiefs are going to absolutely win this game. Andy Reid off of a bye is outstanding. He's going to have a great game plan. They're going to pick apart this Eagles secondary that has struggled to say the least. The Eagles, they'll have some success offensively, but the Chiefs' defense is for real. And I think that's the difference in the game. I think the Chiefs are able to slow down the Eagles' run game and give their team enough opportunities to go down the field. Kelsey will have a big game against this Eagles secondary. Give me the Chiefs by a touchdown, and I will be betting the Chiefs. In fact, I already did. I took them -2.5. I probably will take some more on them at -3. So let's move on to some college football talk, and let's discuss number 7 Texas, and this will be my longer rant real quick. Steve Sarkisian. If you're out there, maybe you'll see this one day. And if you see this, buddy, know that I was rooting for you when you came in. I really like second chances, and I love that you were a good coach, and then you got the job at Washington, and then you got the head job at USC, and it didn't go well for you, and you made some mistakes. And instead of chastising you and putting you away and saying, that's it, you battled back, and you fought off your demons, and you came back, and you got the Alabama OC job and helped them win a national title, and then you got the Texas head job, hook 'em, right? And you've been recruiting incredibly well at Texas. But there is something wrong with you, dude. There really is. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your football coaching. As a man, I like you. And I really actually hope that maybe you somehow turn this around. But for God's sakes, man, every single fucking week, it's the same shit over and over and over. Last week, against Kansas State, we are up 27-7. You blow the whole lead. And if it weren't for a Kansas State missed extra point, and a Kansas State missed 29-yard field goal, we fucking lose to Kansas State at home. So you think this week you would learn your lesson, and you're up 26-6. And maybe you can figure out a way to put a game away for once and not make us fucking sweat like you always do. But oh no, of course not. We always got to make it interesting. Yeah, let's make it real fucking interesting with TCU. 4-6 TCU. With a backup quarterback making his 4th career start. Dude, you wear the defense out every single week. They had 6 points in the first half. Just like K-State last week, had 7. They do nothing all the first part of the game. But you keep doing the stupidest shit. You go for it on 4th down. You put Savion Red in the game. Who, by the way, got a ridiculous personal foul at the end of the game. That guy should be on the absolute hot seat. He shouldn't even play another snap this year. But Sark, once again, you prove that you don't learn from your mistakes. And that's red flag number 1. That you continuously do it. This team over and over blows leads in the 4th quarter. You mismanage the game. You mismanage the game at the end of the game every time. You did it versus Oklahoma. We had the ball driving chance to run the clock out and kick a field goal. And you're throwing the ball and going, hurry up and snapping the ball with 20 seconds on the play clock. You run the ball on 3rd and 9 and settle for a field goal. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We lose the game versus Oklahoma because of that. Then you go and play Houston. You're up 21-0 in the second half. Can't put the game away. Can't score any points. Choke the game away. Quinn gets hurt. Kansas State, same story. This week, same story. Do something different. Learn from your mistakes. It took a 3rd and 12 conversion at the end of the game or else we'd probably lose. And then, at the end of the game, when you can take a fucking knee, Mario Cristobal Jr., you're running the goddamn ball. What the fuck, man? You could take a knee. I'm a fucking guy sitting at home on his couch who's never coached football before in my life. And logically, I'm looking at that like, what in the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? Take a knee. Are you trying to give him a chance? Is it that hard for you to communicate with your players and tell them what you want them to do? Or are you just that stupid? I hope honestly that you're that stupid, because if you're not, the incompetence and the hubris it takes to do what you do week in and week out is disgusting. And you need to go, Sark. Every single week, we sit there as a family and we watch the Texas game. And every single week, we say, here we go again. Here we go fucking again. Every week. Up 26-6. They got us right where they want us. I mean, it's disgusting. 20-3, you're outscored in the 4th quarter. 20-3. Couldn't move the ball. couldn't get a first down, conservative play calling. I just, when you're aggressive is when we should be conservative, and when you're conservative, it's when we should be aggressive. But Texas is really in trouble because they lost their best player and their running back, Jonathan Brooks, for the season. Got injured at the end of the game, and it's a knee injury, and it sucks for the kid, too, because he's going to be the first running back taken off the board in the 2024 draft. It's probably going to hurt his draft stock, so really, really shitty way to go out, and that hurts Texas, man. A team that's fighting to get in the playoffs. It hurts because I think, CJ Baxter, the backup running back, is going to have to step up. He's a 5-star kid out of Texas, and he's really, really solid, and he's come on as the season has gone on, and he will do a good job filling in. But he's not Jonathan Brooks. I mean, Brooks is the number 1 rusher in the country. So hard to fill those shoes, And so we'll see where Texas goes. So let's move on and let's discuss the Texas A&M Aggies. And the breaking news yesterday that the Aggies have fired head coach Jimbo Fisher after 5 seasons at Texas A&M. Fisher was 45-25 as head coach. As the Aggies head coach. Jimbo was 45-25 as the Aggies head coach. And, this was a long time coming. He probably could have gotten fired earlier based on performance the last few years. They obviously missed a bowl game last year. Right now they're sitting 6-4, but supposedly the decision was made before this week. They did win this week by 40 points against Mississippi State, but overall the year has been a disappointment for Aggie fans. They've lost against most of the better competition teams they played, and it was capped by that loss at Ole Miss where they had a chance late to tie the game and missed the field goal. But I listened to the press conference where they talked about the firing of Jimbo, and I just need to say this, and for all the Aggie fans out there, and this is the issue. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk, because I know I'm openly a Longhorns fan, and I'm not rooting against the Aggies here, but there's a disconnect between what the Aggies are and what Aggie fans believe they should be, right? Their reality does not equal perception, right? And the perception of Aggie fans is we're a championship program. We are a program that needs to win titles. I'm sorry, but the reality is that that's not been the case ever, really. I mean, shit, I think Jimbo had a better winning percentage than Kevin Sumlin. I think Jimbo actually improved the program compared to the last few coaches at A&M. They won the Orange Bowl his second year and won 10 games. They were one place out of making the playoffs. Now, it was in the COVID year, and it was kind of a fluky thing, and they didn't even play a full slate of schedules, but it's like, I just think that Aggie fans believe that they're the monsters of the SEC, and that's just not true. They've never even been to an SEC title game, and when they were in the Big 12, I can't remember the last time they made a Big 12 title game. I mean, they're just not that great of a program. I understand there's a lot of big Aggie fans out there, and I understand that Aggie fans have high expectations. I do. I get that. But guys, you aren't getting 5-star recruits like you've been getting with Jimbo. So, when you fire him here, yeah, he was not doing a good job. And he's not a college football head coach at a big program anymore. His time has passed. We saw that. That's why he left Florida State, right? It was trending poorly at the end. So I get the firing. But again, it's not like you're going to go get somebody to come in here and recruit like Jimbo. I mean, who are you going to go get right now? I don't know. I'm hearing Jeff Traylor from UTSA, who is a really good coach. Heck of a coach. Is he going to recruit like Jimbo Fisher for A&M? No fucking way. And that doesn't even take into account the financial issues of this. Jimbo Fisher is being paid $77 million to not coach anymore for Texas A&M. It's the largest buyout in the history of college football that's actually being paid out. And Jimbo at his age probably will not coach anymore. He probably will go be an analyst somewhere. And A&M will have to pay pretty much all that money. I'm sure there's contract stipulations in there if he does go get a job or whatever, but it's like, dude, you're going to pay $77 million? I mean, I was listening to the press conference of this guy. I guess it was like the president or the PR guy or whatever, and he's like trying to rationalize it. Like, well, we're stuck here, and we didn't want to stay stuck. And yes, the financial contribution is going to be large, but we have this and this to pay it. And I'm like, you're trying to say is, man, we done fucked up. We done fucked up. And here's my take on this, right? The problem is reality and perception for A&M fans is not equal. What they tried to do was skip a bunch of steps, like building a program up to the point where it's like, we need to get, okay, we've got this level of recruits coming in, and let's develop them. And our mentality is the 12th man, and we're going to work hard. And then you go out and get a coach who doesn't preach any of that bullshit, and is all about getting the best talent, and is all about, ego and all of that. It's like, those two things don't equal each other whatsoever. That's problem number one. Problem number two is, you're not just going to all of a sudden get all these 5 stars and have a coach who can develop them. If that guy existed, he would not be at Texas A&M. I'm sorry. That's Nick Saban, right? Like, it's just not Jimbo. Jimbo was a great recruiter, but it was like, instead of let's go get a really, we're building our program, right? We got Manziel and we have this excitement around our program, and now people are starting to want to go to our school. Okay, you have that excitement. Go get somebody now who is better at developing players. And that would have been, I know Jeff Traylor at the time wasn't, but that would have been a great move to go to him at that point, right? So it's like moving in steps. You're not going to just jump from like a low-level coach in a bad program to like this top guy. And that's what they tried to do. They tried to skip all these steps. And it failed miserably. After year 2, A&M fans couldn't stop talking because they were 5th and they won the Orange Bowl and they had one loss and it was to Alabama. But the reality is they played no other ranked teams that season, right? This is a guy in Jimbo Fisher who didn't develop talent whatsoever at A&M. They did not develop talent. And so this is a shit show over in Aggie land right now. It is. They're paying $77 million to get rid of their head coach. Stupidest contract in the history of college football, maybe in the history of sports, to write a buyout that fucking big for a coach. You sold your soul and you sold your checkbook. And now you're having to go to take all the money out. And the guy even said in this press conference, like, yeah, we're going to have to find adjustments financially in other places. That's other sports is what he means. And he tried to slip in there, I believe all other sports are equal. No, he doesn't. They're going to cut funding in a lot of different spots to pay for this contract. And you could hear in his voice, he was trying to rationalize it and all this stuff. I get it. I understand. But it's like, man, $77 million. How are you going to... So you're going to lose the guy who recruits everybody, and you're going to lose a lot of the funds for the 12th Man Foundation doles out for NIL deals? You think they're going to be doling out the same amount of money after those boosters play $77 million? I mean, maybe. There is a lot of oil money out there. I get it, but all I'm saying is you got two, top-tier programs coming into the SEC in Texas and Oklahoma. Both of them on the uptick. Even though I don't like Oklahoma or Venables, he's doing a better job this year. And as much as I dislike Sark, Texas is on the uptick. There's no arguing. First time they're going to win 10 games. They've won 10 games, or they're going to win 10 games in a long time. So you have those two programs coming in. You got Georgia and Alabama already there. You got Florida. You got Tennessee. You got a lot of historic programs. Ole Miss is pretty good, So to me, you're now competing with two more top-tier schools for recruits in that conference. You got rid of your best recruiter, and you paid all this money to do it. It's a real bad look. Was it the right move? Time will tell. Probably it is. If you could have waited, the thing about it is if you could have waited another year or two, which is a stretch, right? Like Jimbo's pretty bad. But like the thing is A&M fans are so delusional that every single year, once the season starts, they're going to believe that they're good again. And then when they lose and get disappointed, they'll be pissed and they'll outcry. And then the offseason will come and you'll be all right. You'll get through it. Everybody's hopes will get up again. You could have survived 2 more years of doing that. And yeah, if you think you're wasting the years, I get it. But, I mean, you might have wanted to do that and save the money. I understand you don't want to waste the 2 years, but geez Louise, man, $77 million is just fucking wild. All right, before we move on to some picks and some other things, I'm going to talk a little bit about the NBA. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here about the Spurs. So the Spurs started off the season 3-2. They go into Phoenix, and they play a back-to-back against the Suns on the road against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and they win both games. And I come out of that thinking, wow, Wemby in Game 2 had 38 and 10. He looked amazing. The Spurs looked like they were fun to watch again. I was so excited after that game. Like, man, maybe we could make the play-in game this year. You know? Do we want to make the play-in game? Maybe we want the draft pick, but I don't care as long as we're playing good. It's exciting, right? And since then, we've lost 5 straight. And that included the following game in which the Spurs lost to the Raptors in a game where they led by 20 points in the fourth quarter, in the second half. 15 points going into the fourth quarter and got outscored by 15 and then lost in overtime. And in those last 5 games, we've given up at least 123 points in every game. And if you're wondering what we are defensively this year, we are under Greg Popovich. The Spurs are dead last in defensive efficiency. They're dead last in points per game allowed. They are giving up 125 points a game. 125 a game. Worst in the league. You know what the Spurs were in points allowed last year under Pop? Yep, you guessed it. They were last. 123 a game last year. They were 21st the year before. So it's getting worse each year. 21st to 30th to worse at 30th. I mean, this is a guy who was a defensive coach his whole career. And now we're the worst defensive team in the league the last 3 seasons. It's not getting any better. Out of 30 teams, we're second to last in defensive rating. 20th in defensive rebound percentage, which is how, the percentage of rebounds that we get when a shot is missed. It's basically how well do you block out. We don't block out well. In fact, we are in the bottom 10 of the league, bottom third of the league. 23rd in steals, 20th in points in the paint allowed with Wembanyama, who's 7-4. We've given up at least 113 points in every game this season. So to win games on average, we're having to score 125, right? At the very least, to have any shot in a given game, the least we could score is 114. And yeah, I understand the league is more high scoring now, but 125 is like historically bad. That would be like the worst ever. That's what we're on pace for so far. We gave up 152 one game in a regulation 4-quarter game, no overtime. 152 points. Pop is driving me fucking nuts. And I'm sorry, I've said this for years, and it's been an unpopular take, but there's no denying this now. Pop's lineups, man. I mean, he's playing fucking Malachi Branham 20-plus minutes a game. Why? He's inefficient. He can't shoot the 3-ball. He turns the ball over. He's not a good defender. He's not very good. He's playing Jeremy Sohan at the fucking point guard position. The kid is a wing at best. He's an average wing. He's not a very good player, and you're playing him at point guard? What a shit show that's been. Absolutely awful. I mean, you watch stretches of that game. I watched a stretch of the game the other night, and I was watching this like, man, there are some collegiate teams who could beat this team. It was embarrassing. Embarrassing. And we let Cam Payne go, an athletic young point guard. Why? Because he didn't want to play for Greg Popovich. Who does these days? I mean, again, you look at how coaches coach nowadays. It's not the way Greg Popovich coaches. Now, I do think that kids and players have become soft. I agree with that. I don't like that. You can't coach kids hard anymore. That's stupid. I hate that. But there's a level. And you look at a guy like Bill Belichick, same thing. That type of style that Pop and Belichick have, when you're winning, it's fine, right? It's okay if you're winning. Everything's going good. Winning masks a lot of problems. But if you are losing, like the Patriots are now, and like the Spurs are and have been for the last half decade, more than that, it wears on dudes. It absolutely wears on them. That's the type of coach that he is. Hard-nosed, old school. I'm not saying that that's completely wrong. I think Pop is a good dude. I think deep down he cares about his players. But people don't want to play for him. There's a reason people don't want to come to San Antonio other than just the city, right? It's becoming a pretty big city. The issue is people don't want to play for Pop, right? People don't want to play for Greg Popovich. I mean, that coaching was great when you were, winning 1999 to 2007. It was great. You won 4 titles in 8 years. That's fine. But since 2007, there's been issues. I mean, the 2014 title is an anomaly. That doesn't have anything to do with Pop, in my opinion. That was just by far the best team in the league was the Spurs that year. It's just time for Pop to go, though, guys. I mean, we need a new face. We need a new voice. We need a young guy in there with some fucking heart. I mean, I watched a fucking end of a game where he had his assistants in there drawing the play up, which, great, empower your assistants, but he walked away from the huddle. He didn't even listen to what his assistant had to say to the team. You might want to be in there helping, guiding. I mean, Jesus, man. It's like he doesn't even care anymore. I mean, he's not, and this is not going on just now. He's been bad for a decade, guys. He's been bad for a long time. 2013, right? NBA Finals. We win game 1 on the road. We're tied 1-1. We win the decisive game 3. 80% of the teams who win game 3 when it's tied 1-1 win the series. It's like 87% who win game 5. And what happened? We were tied 2-2 and we won game 5. And we lost. And why did we lose? And people forget this. 2013 was 100% on Greg Popovich. In game 6, we are up by motherfucking 4 with the ball with 28 seconds to go, and they fouled us. And yes, we should have made free throws. Manu went 1 of 2 twice, and Kawhi went 1 of 2 once. That was bad. But Pop takes out every rebounder we had in that final possession. So we go up by, I believe, 6. Or I'm sorry, we go up 5. And on that next possession, people forget this. People remember the offensive rebound for Bosch kick out to Allen. But the second to last possession, the same thing happened. He had Duncan out of the game. He had no rebounding in. Boris Diaw was the biggest guy out there. I'm assuming to switch everything. Well, they still got a great look. Their first look was LeBron pulling up. And then what happened? Offensive rebound. And they kicked it back out and he hit it. Boom, down to 2. Now we got to make pressure free throws. You'd think, after watching the offensive rebound the first possession, you would think, okay, let's be smart here. Let's put in, they're going to be shooting a 3. Let's put in the rebounder. Nope. Same lineup. We go 1 for 2 again. It's a 3-point game. No thought of maybe we should foul here. Maybe we should foul and put him on the line because who have we ever seen? It's very seldom you see a team get fouled in that situation and win the game. The Heat were out of timeouts. They had used their last timeout. If we foul there, we have a chance to win. Especially if we foul LeBron when he's bringing the ball up, who's a career 69% free throw shooter. Nope, no foul, and they miss. And what happens? Another fucking offensive rebound, and they kick it out for a 3 and win, hit the shot. We go to overtime. The rest is history. We lose the finals because of that. 2014, we were the best team. Even that year, we played the Mavericks in round 1. We almost fucking lost. Game 7. Went to game 7 as the 1 seed. Wasn't the first time. We lost to an 8 seed earlier in Pop's career when we were playing the Grizzlies one year. But we go to game 7, and, we very well could have lost that series to an old Mavericks team who had no business being anywhere close to us. I mean, And you look at like runs like that. This is a dude who was like resting players. He would rest players when we get down like 15 in the third quarter in the NBA, where you can come back on in a lot of different ways. And he'd like pull his starters out and rest them and like concede playoff games. It was fucking wild. And we wonder why we never repeated. He never repeated. Never even one time did we make the championship the year after winning a title. We only went back-to-back after losing the first one in 2013 and then winning in 2014. But let's look at the time after 2014 when we win the title. 2015, we go to the first round. We're defending champs. Underwhelming year. We're up 3-2 on the Clippers. We have a elimination game at home, or a closeout game at home to win the series and move on. We choke. We lose that game. We lose game 7 on the road. We're out in the first round, which is the story for Pop a lot of years that we don't win the title. So first round exit the year after winning the title. No back-to-back once again. Shocker. 2016, we go to the second round. We're playing the OKC Thunder. We're up 2-1. We're up 2-2. We got game 5 at home. Decisive game 5. Lose game 5 at home. Lose game 6 on the road. Series over. We lose. We would have gone on to the title that year. The Thunder went on to the title. If we would have won, we would have gone to the championship. And we lose. And now we're out back-to-back years. 2017, we go to the Western Conference Finals. In the second round that year, we played the Rockets. Pop coached horrifically in that series, and Manu Ginobili saved us. But we go to the Western Conference Finals, and I'll give Pop a break this year. This is the only year I'll give him a break, because if Kawhi doesn't go down, we have a good chance to win that series. Now, he probably would have fucked it up, but fucking Zaza Pachulia, man. Piece of shit. Cost the Spurs a chance to play for a title again. Zaza is a piece of shit. Now, I do love Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's the man. I'm a big Steve Kerr fan. I think he's the best coach in the NBA and has been for a long time. But fuck Zaza Pachulia. But I'll give him a pass. Although, after Kawhi went out, we were up 20 in the second half, and we choked that game away, and we got swept. We couldn't even win one game. Not one game. Since that season, since the exit in 2017, 6+ years under Pop, 4 years of no playoff appearances, 0 playoff series wins, 4 total playoff game wins, missed the playoffs 4 straight times, and Pop's record in the regular season during that time is 219 and 262 for a 45% win percentage. Lost 43 times more than he's won. He's fucking done. He's done. At least, though, Pop is a legend. He's a San Antonio legend, and without him, we may not win some of those titles. He was great. He built the team. He got them to play together, and I really am a fan of Pop. I just think it's time for him to go. The GM, on the other hand, is a different fucking story. And his name, if you don't know that, is Brian Wright. And Brian Wright, I don't know whose fucking nephew this guy is. I mean, he's got to be fucking related to somebody. Because the fact that this man has a job in an NBA front office, let alone as a fucking general manager, is beyond me. It's beyond me. I cannot believe it. He is the worst general manager in the history of sports. It is wild. There must be some nepotism going on there, because it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I literally think Brian Wright sits in his room and thinks, would an idiot do this? And if they would, then he does that thing. Would an idiot draft this guy? If they would, then he drafts that guy. Does this guy have a 70% chance or better of being out of the NBA in 2 years? If so, we will take him, according to Brian Wright. This guy's a fucking moron. He's a fucking idiot. He's like the idiot of all the idiots and all the idiot people of the entire world. He reigns supreme. 2019, first round pick, 19th overall. He drafts Luka Samanic. Ever heard of him? Why would you? He's out of the league. 2021, pick 12, lottery pick. Josh Primo. Projected a second round pick. Takes him at 12. At fucking 12. And everybody in the Spurs community is like, go and Pop, we trust. And in RC's not the calling the shots anymore, guys. This dude is. He drafted Josh Primo, 12th overall. The dude is out of the league. 2022, pick 9 in the first round. Highest pick we've had at that point since Tim Duncan. Who do we take? Jeremy fucking Sohan. Jeremy fucking Sohan. Don't take Duran, who is a top center. Don't trade up and try to get somebody good. Get Jeremy fucking Sohan. Dude had never even started a collegiate game. Yeah, that's really working out. His 9 points a game and shitting all over himself trying to play point guard. That's really working out. We had 2 more first-round picks that year. 20th, Malachi Branham. Bum. Can't shoot. Never will be a good player, but be a below-average player for a bad team like he is now. Maybe a 2A player. He'll hang around the league and he'll be gone. We had another one. 25th, Blake fucking Wesley. If you want to watch some bad basketball and what it looks like to just be like, like in space, like they call it the black hole where you like everything disappears, throw a ball to Blake Wesley, you'll never see it again because he'll just launch some shit up. Dude's fucking awful. Can't even play in the summer league. And then he gets Wemby, and it saves his job. If you put a lineup of the draft prospects from this year in front of my grandma who knows nothing about basketball, she would have picked Wemby. I mean, anyone in the world. It fell into his lap, and it saved his job. And you look at all the draft picks we've amassed over the years. And two things. Number one, I'm fucking terrified of what he's going to do with those picks. It's going to ruin us. We have a chance to really build, and he'll fuck us over. But then I look at it of some of these deals that he made to get these picks, and I thought, man, that was a good deal. We got some draft picks. And then the other day I looked, and every single one of them is protected by the lottery, meaning we're not even going to get a single pick in the top 15, top 16. Every single one of them is like top 14 or 15 protected, top 10 protected at best. We're getting nobody for those. It's wild how bad those deals were. And most of them are teams who we could get lottery picks from. So if it goes too long, they would turn into second round picks. It's unfathomable how bad this guy is. I'd even be okay with keeping Pop if we just fucking got rid of Brian Wright. The guy's a fucking moron. The Spurs need to clean house, start over, start new. We just got Wemby. We've got a good young core. Vassell's pretty good. Keldon's pretty good. I don't think they're great, but they're decent enough to build around Wemby. Just start fresh. Find a good young coach. We could have gotten like Will Hardy or somebody. Fuck, man. That's my rant for the day on them. Moving on quickly to college football, we'll pick some of the big games. We got Texas traveling to Iowa State. The Longhorns are an 8-point favorite in Ames, Iowa. Now, this is always a tough place for the Longhorns to play. They tend to struggle here. Iowa State, 6-4, 5-2, has a chance with the win to still get in the Big 12 title game. They absolutely demolished BYU last week, but they lost to Kansas the prior week. I still like Texas in this spot. They're going to get their 10th win of the year, and they're going to get to the Big 12 title game. And at that point, we will see if the Longhorns can get in the college football playoff. Moving on, we've got Michigan taking on Maryland. They are 19-point favorites, even with their idiot offensive coordinator crying and whining. Harborough not coaching. Michigan wins this by, probably by 30. It'll be an absolute shellacking. Utah traveling to Arizona as we have a top 25 matchup in the Pac-12 there. Each team 7-3. Arizona 5-2 in the Pac-12. Playing really, really good football. Won a close game against Colorado last week. The line is a pick'em here. Utah's played a lot of emotional games, and the defense hasn't looked as good in the past few weeks. Arizona's definitely due for a loss, so I could see Utah winning here for sure. But I think Arizona at home, even though they don't have the greatest home field advantage, the fact that the game isn't in Salt Lake is a bonus. I think a lot of people are going to be on Utah in this spot. If you haven't seen Arizona play this year, they're pretty fucking good. and they've gotten better as the year goes on. They've got a great offensive line. I think they're going to win in the trenches here. Give me Arizona in a close one. They'll pull it out by 3. Another matchup in the Pac-12, the Oregon Ducks travel for their final road game of the season to Arizona State, Tempe, Arizona, where they will take on the Sun Devils. And the Sun Devils pulled off the outright upset, 17-7 over UCLA last week. UCLA was ranked in the top 25. They were a 17-point favorite against Arizona State. And Arizona State does what they've done all year. They're undermanned. They have guys injured. They have less scholarships. They can't make a postseason run. They only have 3 wins, and yet they're competitive in every game. The only game they played that wasn't close was a couple weeks ago against Utah. They were beaten by like 49 points. You take out that game, every game has been close. They had a chance to beat Washington in Seattle earlier this year. Very decent chance. Late in the game, winning. They've been close to pulling upsets all year. This is going to be much closer than people think, right? Now, I might be wrong about this. Oregon might come out and stomp them, and then I'm going to look dumb for predicting this. But I think Arizona State gives them a really good game. This is going to be like their chance to play spoiler, and this is going to be Arizona State's Super Bowl. It's their last home game. That place is going to be rocking. Give me Oregon, but it's going to be very tight. Oregon they might get a score late to win by 14, but I'll say by 7. Oregon by 7. Alabama plays Chattanooga. That's going to be a blowout. Give me Alabama by 1,000,000, by 38. Ole Miss, Louisiana Monroe. Ole Miss by 42. Penn State at home against Rutgers. Last time Penn State came off their physical matchup against Ohio State, they damn near lost outright to Indiana. Rutgers is better than that team, but I still think Penn State wins. It'll be closer than people think. Penn State by 14. Louisville travels to Miami. Man, Louisville's basically clinched a spot in the ACC title game. Miami is 2-4 in the ACC. This is kind of for Cristobal's job. I really want to say Miami in this spot, but I'm not going to. I can't bet on Mario Cristobal, especially with Tyler Van Dyke throwing 6 interceptions and no touchdowns the last 3 games. Give me Louisville it'll be a very tight game. Louisville by a late touchdown. It'll be tied late, and they'll score a touchdown to win it. Oklahoma, number 17, travels to BYU. OU got back on track last week, defeating West Virginia easily. OU has to win out to have any shot to make the Big 12 title game. They will destroy BYU. BYU is not a very good football team. I think OU wins by 35. I don't think it's even close. Tulane, number 23, travels to Florida Atlantic. Tulane almost lost last week, but they will easily win this week against a bad Florida Atlantic team. Tulane by 10. Moving on, Georgia travels to Tennessee, to Knoxville and Neyland Stadium. Does Tennessee have a shot to pull the upset? Absolutely fucking not. Joe Milton is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen at the Power 5 level in the SEC. He cannot throw the ball. He's terrible. Georgia will win this game. I can't believe the line's 10.5. Georgia's going to win this game by 24, maybe 30. Give me Georgia by 20. I'll say 24. Georgia by 24. Wake Forest at Notre Dame. Give me Notre Dame all day. Notre Dame by 21. Even though they have trouble running away from people, they will win that one. Iowa, back in the top 25. They're 8-2. Go figure. They actually, scored some points last week. And this will be the last home game for Brian Ferentz as offensive coordinator. They're playing Illinois. Illinois playing some good football right now. They've gotten back on track. They are 5-5. They need 1 win in their last 2 to get bowl eligible. I don't know why, but I'm going to take Illinois in this spot. I think somehow they just do enough. Brett Bielema does a good job there, and he's going to find a way to pull the upset. Give me Illinois to beat Iowa outright by 3. Tight game, low-scoring game. I also think that's the first game that's going to go over the total that's under, the total is 30.5, which is wild low. North Carolina traveling to Clemson. North Carolina, number 24, 8-2, traveling to 6-4 Clemson, and yet Clemson is favored by 7 points. Interesting spot here. North Carolina's defense has played bad. North Carolina as a team has not played very good. Clemson is not good either, but they played too good at home for me to not back them here. I don't think they'll cover the spread, but they're going to win a close game by 3. Give me Clemson by 3. Ohio State taking on Minnesota. Ohio State will win the game by 34, and they'll row that boat right on down across Minnesota. Oklahoma State at Houston. Oklahoma State has to win their last two to get into the Big 12 title game. They are 7-point favorites. They will win and cover that. They'll bounce back after the loss last week. I told you last week one of my best bets was Central Florida, and they won by 40. Dominated. Okie State gets back on track here and beats Houston. They probably cover that spread. I'll say Okie State by 10. Florida State taking on North Alabama. They win by 50+. Kansas, number 16 in the country, got upset last week. Their quarterback is injured. Their backup quarterback is injured last week. They had to play the game at the end with a backup third string, and they were unable to get the win. Got upset at home by Texas Tech. Tough loss for the Jayhawks, as it looked like they had a chance to get to the Big 12 title game if they won out. Instead, they're now 4-3. Kansas State, on the other hand, still alive in the Big 12 title race. Going to be tough to get in, but they still have a shot. They've lost to Oklahoma State and Texas. So they have to win this game, and I think they will only because I believe Jason Bean is out. I think the third string quarterback is out. So give me Kansas State by 7. Washington at Oregon State. And here is my upset of the week. Give me the Oregon State Beavers to upset number 5 Washington at home. Oregon State will win the game outright. They'll win it by 3. And Washington will lose their first game of the season. Florida traveling to Missouri. Give me Missouri by 15. Missouri has been great at home all year. And then finally, LSU against Georgia State. LSU dominates, wins by 34. Jaden Daniels should be the Heisman. I don't care what the record is. He is the best player in college football, and I would love it if they actually gave it to him. It's not even close. Thrown for 3,000 yards, rushed for 1,000 more, 47 total touchdowns on the year. The guy's an absolute stud. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Watching me today, flying solo as didn't have Turner or Big Dog here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode and everything we talked with college football and the NFL. We got college hoops. We'll do some more college hoops in-depth breakdowns. Please, please, please let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, the type of content you like. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SlobPod. Follow me on TikTok at DylanLeak21. I will put it on the screen and in the description. That's at DYLANLIECK21 for all things college football, ranting, college football picks. Check out my best bet segment for this week. That's coming soon. I have my best investment opportunities for college football and the NFL. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great week of sports. I'll be back soon with a high school football preview. We got high school football going on in the state of Texas right now. We're in the second round of the playoffs. We'll do some bracket breakdown, some preview, and tell you who the guys and the players are to watch. And we'll break down the biggest matchups for the second round. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, guys, and hope you enjoyed.